One of the things that's made tomatoes so popular is obviously the flavor, but now we've gotten to a point where it almost becomes a competition with who can have the first tomato, who can have the biggest tomato, the ripest, the pinkest, or the reddest. In fact, I've heard rumor that they're considering it for a competition in the Olympics in 2012. Not sure on that though. Hello, I'm Jerry Goodspeed with Utah State University Extension, and we're here at the Ogden Botanical Garden, and it's early May, and it's time to plant tomatoes. Tomatoes are the #1 grown vegetable in America, hands down. In fact, if the truth were known, that's the only reason I garden. Yeah, everything else is just fluff. So the carrots and the spinach and the beans, oh, they're nice to have and they kind of showcase a little bit, but the whole reason I garden is for tomatoes. There's nothing better than a nice fresh tomato picked out of your garden. The first BLT is what you're after here. So I'm going to show you a couple of tricks or a couple of things about planting tomatoes and growing tomatoes that I find that help me. You'll notice that I'm in a raised bed here, and I don't care what vegetable it is. They all do better in a raised bed, whether it's a formal structured raised bed like we have here, or if you're just mounding your soil in your garden. Either way, what you're trying to do is create a better soil environment for your vegetables, for the roots. That's why I tell people, you're not planting a tomato, you're planting the roots. If the roots are healthy, the plant will be great. So we have a couple of sizes here that you'll find in the nurseries. This is what you'll get out of a pony pack. You'll see the nice healthy roots. That's what you're looking for, the nice white roots, healthy. Pretty good growth. You don't want insects and diseases on it. This is a little bit bigger plant, which you can also find in the nursery as well. And I'm going to be planting this one today, but you'll be doing it the same way, whether it's for these small pony packs or this big one. What I will do is I will dig a hole quite a lot deeper than the plant is, because tomatoes are kind of cool. They're one of the few plants that can grow roots just about anywhere on the stem, which to me is kind of weird, but it's also really cool. So what I do is I'll just dig this big hole here where I'm going to stuff this tomato into. And we're going to go deep, which is you never do on any other plant, but you can on tomatoes. And I'm going to pop it out of the pot. Even though this is a biodegradable pot, I still feel comfortable about popping it out, looking at the roots, making sure they're good, they're what I like. And it doesn't hurt the plant to disturb those roots a little bit. There's no problem at all. Okay, I'll pop the bottom off of that. Now what I'll do, because I know that it can grow roots anywhere along that stem, I'm going to plant a little bit deeper, and I'm going to remove some of these lower branches here, leaves on it. And you can see I've actually got 2 tomatoes in here. That's a bonus for me. I'm all right with that. So we're going to remove those lower branches about to there. Now you can see we've cleaned that up really nice. And now I'm going to plant it all the way up to that first leaf. That's pretty deep. And I'm going to dig it out. This is another nice thing about a raised bed. Man, you can dig with your hands. I always like that. Okay, you stick it in the ground, fill it back in real nice around it, and you can see that I filled it back in and planted it right to those leaves that I left. Now it's important to leave some of the top, and which I did, but I planted it deeper than I normally would have because tomatoes will grow roots on those stems. That's really neat. You'll also notice here that what we have done is we've planted it next to some fencing that we put in our raised beds just for this purpose. This is kind of cool. We've got peas that are about to come up, and the peas will come up and we can use this on the peas will grow up here, we'll harvest them. And about the time the tomatoes are getting really big where we're ready to put them onto the fence, we'll cut down the peas and then the tomatoes will grow up here for the rest of the summer. This keeps the tomatoes off of the ground so that we don't have slugs and snail problems. It's easier to harvest as well. It's easier to see and to care for. We just tend to have a lot better luck if we can tie them up and get them up off the ground. And like I said, I love tomatoes, but tomatoes are kind of tender. And so before you do this, before we're planting this tomato into the ground, we want to make sure that we're past the last frost. And I know that's always tricky to do, but try to get it past the last frost, because if we get a hard freeze on a tomato, it'll kill it, and then you got to start all over again. As far as fertilization goes, we only fertilize our tomatoes once. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that say they're fertilizing them every week. I don't, and we have wonderful luck without doing that. We'll just put an all-purpose fertilizer, and what we'll do with it is we'll actually just plant it right next to our tomato. So we'll make a little hole here, about 2 inches deep and about 3 or 4 inches away from the tomato. We'll grab our fertilizer, and we'll just use an all-purpose fertilizer, whatever we can find on sale, but just an all-purpose good fertilizer is what we're after. We'll take a small handful of it, we'll place it into the hole right here, and then we'll just cover it up. Now that plant has a little pocket of fertilizer right next to it. As those roots grow and mature, they'll be able to find that. It's where they need it. Make sure you don't put it in the same hole. It's got to be in a different hole because the fertilizer is a salt and you don't want to burn or hurt that new tomato. Now you can hurt zucchinis, no problem there, but tomatoes, you don't want to hurt them. You want to keep them alive and healthy. That'll help you by planting it a little bit deeper. It'll give it a really strong root system. By giving it a place to grow up and some good fertilization, you should have a real healthy, good tomato and be able to enjoy a lot of BLTs throughout the summer.